Spine-chilling secrets exposed. 10. Sinister National Park horror stories park rangers won't reveal. The Colorado wilderness is unforgiving, twisting the charm of nature into something darker. As the sun sank behind the jagged peaks, shadows morphed into sinister figures that lurked behind the towering pines surrounding the family's campsite. It was their annual escape from the monotony of suburban life, a much-anticipated tradition. Lisa and Mike, eager to introduce their children to nature's beauty, felt excited as they set up their camp. Clara, their 12-year-old daughter, gleamed with adventure, while Jake, the older sibling, typed furiously on his smartphone, bursting with skepticism. "Look, Jake, this place is amazing," Clara exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. "Yeah, amazing," he muttered, focused on his screen. But as they settled in, the whispers began. Soft, sinister lullabies floated through the trees, weaving threads of unease into the atmosphere. Clara's gaze drifted towards the trees, shadows flitting between the trunks. "Do you hear that?" she asked, eyes wide. "It's probably just the wind," Jake dismissed with a roll of his eyes. But something about the way their parents exchanged nervous glances sent shivers down his spine. The tension thickened the air, tainting their cheerful fade as night enveloped them. The fire flickered, casting long, unpredictable shadows. Clara's heart raced with excitement and fear. The haunting melody echoed again, pulling at her. "Mom, it sounds like your lullaby." Lisa's expression darkened momentarily, but she quickly forced a smile. "Just some nighttime sounds, sweetheart." But the eeriness clung to the family, and no one could shake the unsettling feeling looming over them. Panic gripped Mike when he realized Clara had slipped away, entranced by the eerie call of the woods. "Clara," he yelled, his voice swallowed by the forest's thick silence. "Where did she go?" Lisa's trembling hands betrayed her calm exterior. Every second felt like an eternity, and with each call for their daughter, fear gnawed deeper. "Stay here," Jake urged as he squinted into the darkness, but the dread seeped into his bones. Clara was out there, in those woods. "No, we have to find her." Driven by a mix of adrenaline and terror, he pushed past his fear and plunged into the trees, dragging a reluctant Lisa behind. The shadows deepened. Twisted branches clawed at them as they moved forward, deeper into the ominous forest. They stumbled upon an abandoned campsite, its remnants speaking of despair. Old, rusted gear lay strewn about, a cautionary tale of lost souls whispered among townsfolk, stories dismissed as folklore. But the tales felt alive now, echoing in Jake's head. "Maybe she is here," Mike murmured, red flags raised in his mind. "Look." Lisa held a tattered piece of paper inked with warnings of a forgotten ritual, one that required a sacrifice. "Can't be real, can it?" "Mom, let us go." Jake's voice crackled, eyes darting. His unease fanned into full-blown fear as the creeping sense of danger thickened in the air. The rangers they'd encountered earlier, were they truly there to help, or did they know something darker? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. "Jake!" Lisa's shriek cut through the air. "Clara!" The silence mocked them, growing denser, clasping around their frantic calls. As the forest breathed around them, they now felt the very weight of the land suffocating them. Shadows danced in the periphery, brushing against their minds. What lay ahead? Clara's fading lullaby wafted through the trees, luring them deeper. They stood at the crossroads. Fight through the darkness or succumb to the forest's ancient grip? Would they uncover the malignant forces entwined with Clara's vanishing, or lose her forever to the park's chilling history? The underbrush crackled beneath their hurried steps, a symphony of anxiety echoing in the dense air. Mike's heart hammered against his ribcage, each beat a reminder of Clara's absence. We have to keep going, he panted, pushing past the panic clawing at his throat. Don't you think it's dangerous? Lisa whispered, her voice trembling as she scanned the twisted branches overhead, each shadow morphing into a potential threat. The oppressive weight of the forest pressed against them, as if warning them to turn back. Dangerous? Jake shot back, voice sharp enough to cut through the fear. What isn't dangerous? Clara is out here. He pressed forward, navigating the labyrinth of trees, the faint lullaby ever present yet growing more sinister, more demanding with every step deeper into the woods. The trees seemed to close in, limbs reaching down like skeletal fingers, eager to ensnare them. The whispers grew bolder, chanting in an ancient tongue that twisted his stomach. We're not alone, he muttered, glancing over his shoulder, half expecting to see a figure trailing behind. Just focus on finding Clara. Mike barked back, desperately trying to keep the group moving, the tension shattering the fragile bonds of familial trust. The air felt colder now, a damp chill wrapping around them like a creeping fog. Images of what could happen if they didn't find Clara twisted in his mind. Listen. Lisa suddenly halted, raising a finger to her lips. The lullaby slipped seamlessly into a child's laughter, innocent yet mocking. That single sound resonated between the towering trees, and Jake felt bile rise in his throat. "It's her, Clara," Mike shouted, taking off in the direction of the sound. Lisa sprung after him, but Jake hesitated. The forest seemed alive, pulsating with energy, guiding, taunting. With a deep breath, he followed. The laughter danced around them, leading them deeper, winding through the gnarled roots entwined upon the ground until they broke into a clearing. The sound stopped, only to be replaced by a sheer, deafening silence. "What the hell?" Jake muttered, looking around as shadows flickered in the twilight, shaping into vague, daunting forms. In the center of the clearing, a rough altar made of crumbled stones loomed ominously, covered in dust and crimson stains that gleamed in the dim light. The atmosphere crackled with something dark, an unease thick enough to choke on. The edges of the clearing released whispers, ancient stories of lost children. Rumors raced through Jake's mind like wildfire. Stories of families that had ventured in, only to leave empty-handed, their laughter fading with their footprints. This place, it was real, he stammered, the horror settling in his chest like a stone. "Jake! Help!" Clara's voice pierced the silence, a desperate cry tinged with fear. It shattered the illusion, catapulting him back to the moment. "Clara!" he screamed, adrenaline surging through him. Without thought, Jake dashed towards her voice, every instinct screaming to save her. But the forest twisted beneath him, roots biting at his ankles, slowing him down. "Wait," Mike yelled, but Jake didn't look back. His world had narrowed to that single voice, a lifeline in the creeping doom. He dashed ahead, heart racing, not realizing the shadows were shifting, growing. He jolted into another clearing. The whispers wanted to drown him, to pull him further away, but the tendrils of terror igniting within him pushed him forward. The laughter echoed again, more menacing now, shifting with a tone that suggested Clara was not alone. Was she playing? Or was it something far worse? Horrified, he stumbled into a sight that froze him. Clara, at the edge of the woods, weaving a dance in the grip of shadowy figures, their forms grotesque and shifting. The air pulsed with dark energy, the ritual unfolding before him. "Clara, run!" he shouted, but the figures turned, eyes blazing with hunger, locking onto him. The forest seemed to inhale, and Jake knew no. He felt in his bones that this was just the beginning. What was it that Clara had unknowingly drawn them into? And would they be able to pull her away from the edge before it was too late? Jake's scream shattered the silence like glass. The forest hung heavy with anticipation, the shadows shifting, whispering secrets from their dark corners. The figures encircled Clara, her innocent dance turning into a grim mockery, a twisted ballet choreographed by unseen hands. "Clara!" Mike's voice trembled, fear and anger rushing through him as he lunged forward, every muscle in his body screaming for action. But he was rooted to the spot, the darkness around them thickening like a solid wall. Get away from her, Lisa cried, grabbing Mike's arm, her grip vice-like. We have to find another way. Jake couldn't take his eyes off Clara. She spun and twirled, her eyes wide and vacant, as if she was caught between worlds. The figures gleamed in the fading light, their forms rippling shifted from one grotesque shape to another. Fangs glistened in the shadows, and Jake felt a wave of nausea crash over him. The laughter masked a much darker truth. It echoed, taunting, spinning around him like the sickening scent of decay. Clara, he choked out, forcing himself forward, the roots pulling at his feet like hands dragging him back into the underworld. A low growl resonated from the encroaching shadows, deep and throaty, resonating with a primal hunger. The moment paralyzed Jake. The time to rescue Clara was slipping away like sand through his fingers. The figures shifted again, and he caught glimpses of faces twisted in eternal anguish, their mouths stretching in silent screams. Don't look at them, Lisa shouted as she pulled Mike back. Just focus on Clara. Clara. Mike cried again, desperation painted across his face. But Clara didn't respond. She merely danced with the shadows, tethered to some horrific fate. The forest around Jake grew hotter, the oppressive energy clinging to his skin like a suffocating shroud. He could hear the lullaby once more, a siren song woven between Clara's laughter, beckoning him further into the madness. It was seductive, filling his mind with a fog that dulled his senses. What do we do? Lisa whispered, panic shimmering in her gaze. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to escape this nightmare. But Clara was their sister. Their blood, she was still in there. Somewhere. Suddenly, Clara stopped mid-dance. A flicker of recognition broke through her vacant stare, as if she could sense their presence. Help me, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper against the cacophony. Jake, feeling a spark of hope, pushed his way through the darkness, heart hammering in his chest, clenched fists at his sides. I'm coming for you, he vowed, though the words felt like ashes in his mouth. The laughter morphed into sinister whispers that clawed at him. Join us, they chorused, their voices entwining with the rustling leaves. Each syllable gripped him tighter, like chains slipping around his ankles. Run, Mike shouted suddenly. Panic surged through him, compelling him to act. We have to get her out. But before they could move, the shadows lunged. The darkness swirled around Jake, cold fingers wrapping around his throat. He gasped, eyes wide, feeling himself being pulled into the depths of the void. Don't let go, Lisa screamed, eyes wild as she lunged towards Jake, grasping his arm just before the shadows swallowed him whole. And in that moment, an awful realization pierced through Jake's panic. The forest was alive, and it was hungry. Its heartbeat matched his racing pulse, each throb entwined with Clara's fading light as the shadows flickered and coiled. Jake felt Clara slip from view. The moment hung suspended, and he could only whisper into the void, "What have you done?" Just when Jake thought all hope was lost, Clara's voice rose above the chaos, clearer, brighter. Help me, and then everything went black. What lay beneath this cursed forest? As the darkness closed in, could they find the real Clara before they all became part of the shadows? Darkness enveloped them, an oppressive weight pressing down on Jake's chest. His breath came in short gasps. There was only silence, thick and suffocating, as he grappled with the disorientation. Had they all fallen? Was he alone in the void? A flicker of light pierced through the darkness, a glimmer that pulsed like a heartbeat. He blinked, and it grew, revealing shapes intertwined in a grotesque waltz, a performance of horror thundering through the silence. Clara was still there, her eyes filled with a haunting mixture of fear and fascination. The figures pulsed around her, feeding off her spirit, their mouths stretching in silent screams that reverberated in his bones. Clara, he croaked out, testing the fragile air that clung to him. The shadows writhed, hissing, as if disturbed by his call. The moment hung, pregnant with dread. Clara turned slowly, her face illuminated by that sickly light. Help me, she screamed again, this time desperate and raw. It stirred something deep within Jake, a flicker of defiance against the encroaching darkness. But the weight of despair tugged at him, begging him to submit. Save her. We have to save her. Mike's voice cut through the disturbing lull, breaking Jake from his stupor. Before it's too late, Jake could barely see. Shadows wrapped around him, tightening like a noose as they drifted through the void. He felt Lisa tugging at his arm. Don't let them pull you in, she cried, her fear a tangible presence. He realized he was swaying, almost losing ground against whatever force was holding them. Clara, he shouted again, feeling power well up from within. Maybe if they all called her name, they could break through the darkness. We won't leave you. The sinister symphony of laughter erupted again, the shadows mocking them. It was a sick twist of fate, a cruel jest played out in the heart of nature itself. Each note reverberated in his mind, a cacophony resonating with cruelty and despair, echoing the dance they once performed before everything changed. Clara's voice echoed through the chaos, fragmented and distant. I'm right here. A voice behind him morphed into a cry. Jake, look out. Before he could register it, tendrils of darkness lunged at him, nearly pulling him apart. Panic surged as he felt fingers cold, clammy, pulling at his clothes, at his skin. Fight it, Mike yelled, his voice strained yet firm. Jake forced himself to breathe, heavy breaths that felt like drowning in the crushing darkness. Clara, he strained, mustering every bit of his strength. We're coming. Jake, please. The flickering light dimmed, growing weaker as Clara faded from view. Felt like losing a part of his very soul. Desperation transformed into resolve, all or nothing. Jake clawed at the shadows, his hands shaking as he reached through them, determined to grasp whatever tether remained of her. And then a spark ignited within him, a memory of laughter, of light. The forest shuddered, reacting, vibrating as if in response to his spirit. What would happen if they fought back together? Lisa, Mike, hold my hand, he shouted, feeling the sudden pull of unity, the strength in their bond illuminating the darkness just enough. The laughter morphed into a screech, the shadows recoiling from their power. He could see Clara again, struggling against the pull that sought to consume her whole. Her expression shifted from fear to determination, and within that fleeting moment, Jake saw the truth. A shift in reality, a connection that could bind them once more. Stay with me, Clara shouted, her voice threaded with urgency. As the shadows writhed in rage, miscalculating the force of their combined will. But the darkness wasn't done yet. It retaliated, and the shadows began to tighten around them, seething with blistering hatred. Fear struck through Jake like lightning. What if it was too late? What if they couldn't save her? Clara, he screamed, willing her to fight against the encroaching night. And just as panic threatened to choke the life from him, he heard her voice, a beacon piercing through. Help me, please. The forest grew darker, and the shadows shifted, swelling with a new, terrifying energy. What would emerge from these depths of despair? What horrors lay waiting in the fractured dark? Would they stand a chance against the forest's insatiable hunger? The chill settled deeper in Jake's bones as the darkness writhed around them, pressing against his skin like 1,000 icy fingers. He felt Lisa squeeze his hand tighter, her breath quickening beside him, amplifying the urgency of their collective fear. We have to move, she gasped, eyes wild. Clara, he shouted again, his voice ripping through the suffocating silence. Each echo felt like a heartbeat, drawing the attention of whatever lurked within the shadows. The ground beneath them vibrated as an unearthly growl rattled the air. It sent a tremor of dread through Jake, as if an unseen beast was stirring just beyond their vision. With an almost primal instinct, Jake pulled Lisa and Mike closer, forming a tight circle. We can't let it take us, he urged, desperation spilling from his lips in stark contrast. The darkness answered with a low, mocking hum, as the swirling figures began to merge into one gigantic, undulating form, a maw filled with jagged teeth, elongated limbs that flicked like whips at the surrounding air. A hideous face emerged, grotesque and distorted, a mockery of humanity twisted in pain. Hold on, Focus on Clara, Mike shouted. His voice, even among this chaos, held a thread of courage. They were their last hope. With their hands clasped tightly, Jake could feel adrenaline ignite within him. Together, he cried. And in that moment, something shifted. They drew on shared memories, backyard barbecues, laughter beside campfires, the warmth of friendship. Each recollection warded off the shadows, illuminating the darkness around them. But harmony was brief. The darkness recoiled, hissing and spitting like a cornered animal. Clara's figure faltered in the distance, her face twisted in horror. Please, don't let it win. Fight for me. As if summoned from the depths, shadows lashed out, striking at their ankles, biting into their flesh, dragging them toward the void. Panic surged through Jake, and as he felt the cold tendrils close in, an overwhelming sense of loss washed over him. He was failing. Let go. Clara's voice pierced through the nightmare, urging him on. Don't let it divide us. With a strained roar, Jake stomped his foot, and the air around him rippled, alive with something he couldn't articulate. The force of their bond pushed back the very essence of life. Hope and friendship surged through him, igniting a bright fire within his core, a beacon against the darkness. Clara. The word rang out like a spell, and everything stood still. Shadows recoiled as light erupted from their clasped hands, searing the darkness with rays of white-hot anguish. The grotesque figure screeched, warping and twisting as light poured into the chasm of despair. Jake could see Clara grappling with the terror that threatened to consume her. But just as she seemed to reach them, the darkness retaliated, laughing cruelly, a sound that sliced through the air like ice. They were slipping. The grip of the void was inescapable. Fear clawed at them, vivid and ravenous. Don't lose her, Lisa yelled, battling against her own panic. Jake felt the connection stretching thin, the light flickering as shadows reformed around them. He could almost touch Clara, her outstretched hand mere inches away, filled with pleading desperation. What if they couldn't do it? What if all they had was slipping darkness and pain? Jake's heart thundered in his chest, the tight coils of despair wrapping tighter still. And as Clara's scream echoed through the void, the oppressive air changed. A deeper, darker voice emerged, rumbling like thunder. Foolish mortals, it hissed, a manifestation of their worst nightmares. You think you can escape your fate? The walls of the forest began to close in, dark trees with twisted branches clawing in, ready to pull them back into the depths. In that moment, clarity surged through Jake, sharp and clear. We'll fight, together, he shouted. But would it be enough? The darkness swelled, ready to consume everything. Would they stand a chance against the true heart of the forest's rage? Or was this the end? With unity, forged in desperation, they braced for the truth that hung like a guillotine above them. The forest was alive and hungry. What awaited them in that frantic chaos? Would it be salvation or destruction? The forest surged with a palpable weight, each pulse of darkness echoing with sinister intent. Jake felt his heart race, not just with fear but with a burning determination. The voices of his friends surged alongside him as they fought against the encroaching void. Keep holding on, he screamed, the sound barely a whisper against the cacophony of hissing shadows. Their arms trembled, the light flickering like a dying flame. With each passing second, it dimmed, caught in the suffocating grip of that monstrous entity. Find Clara, Mike shouted, his eyes wide with panic. We have to reach her. Jake's vision narrowed to Clara's silhouette, her face now etched in terror. The shadows pulled at her, each tendril an icy caress, hungry and desperate. Jake, she cried, the sound full of anguish, digging into him like a knife. It broke him. The pain mingled with a deeper sense of failure as her figure wavered, the darkness around her writhing with glee. Fuck, Lisa shouted, her voice snapping him back. We have to focus. Remember the good times. Our friendship. But every memory felt like a ghost against the suffocating gloom. Despair clawed at Jake's throat as he struggled to maintain the connection. No, We won't let you take her, he roared, drawing on the love that had always tethered them together. Light surged again, stronger this time, spurred by raw emotions they had built over the years. Happy moments transformed into bright energy, fusing with fear that seemed to spark like electricity. But the dark figure roared, a terrifying crescendo of noise that felt like nails on a chalkboard, shaking the very ground beneath them. It lashed out, and Jake felt a sharp pain as icy claws scraped his arm, dragging him to the brink. Fight! Clara's voice cut through the noise, spirit unyielding. You have to remember me. I'm right here. And somewhere, deep inside, Jake heard her. A glimmer of light sparked back to life not just their shared memories, but Clara's strength. A surge of clarity struck him like lightning. We're not losing her, he bellowed. Clara, we love you. Remember our promise. Time slowed as their connection shimmered, an otherworldly bond woven tight. Shadows shrieked in fury. Suddenly, the forest twisted, branches curling into sharp claws, ripping the fabric of reality itself. The air became thick, heavy with the scent of decay and despair. Finish them, the dark voice echoed, sent chills racing down his spine. The ground trembled. Roots surged upward, eager to pull them all down into the abyss. Jake felt Lisa's hand slipping. Hold on, Lisa, he gasped, but even as he spoke, the fear of losing anyone else clawed at him. We're stronger together. Desperation fueled their last stand as he wrenched himself forward. Time lost meaning. Shadows darted, every movement a reflection of his own inner turmoil. And then Clara shifted. Her figure brightened against the encroaching darkness, a silhouette of hope. Jake, she cried, her voice steady amid the chaos. I believe in you. Remember, survival is our only option. Just then, a blinding flash erupted, illuminating Clara's face fully. In that instant, he felt the chains of despair begin to break, but the darkness retaliated violently. The air shimmered, the darkness closed in tighter, barely allowing clarity. Fear and determination intermingled as strands of light pushed through, ready to blast back the void. But Jake hesitated. Had he truly found Clara? Would this be the moment they either triumphed or fell into the depths of the endless night? The forest, black and hungry, dared them to take that final step. Would unity be enough to conquer the darkness, or would despair claim them all? Jake's heart thundered in his chest, a primal beat urging him to move, to act, but fear paralyzed him. The darkness pulsed around them, a living thing that seemed to breathe hungrily. Stay with me. Hold on, he shouted again, voice cracking under the weight of their impending doom. The shadows tightened their grip, tendrils curling around Jake's friends. Lisa was fighting, yet her eyes flickered with uncertainty, shadows crawling over her skin. We need to pull her back. We can't lose her, Jake shouted, but panic wrapped around his throat like a noose. Jake, focus. Mike's voice broke through. His face was a mask of sweat and desperation. We need to channel everything into her. Reach inside and take her hand. With that, the group transformed. Desperation became resolve. They tightened their grip on one another, forming a circle of strength. Memories burst to life summer nights around the campfire, laughter echoing through the trees, joyous moments infused with their friendship. Each memory fed the light, pushing back against the consuming darkness. Clara, Jake called again, voice raw with emotion. He could see her clearer now, her eyes dark pools, haunted yet bright. The shadows lashed at her, slipping through gaps in her defenses, but she stood defiant. Remember the promise? That we always come for each other? She shouted, desperation clawing at her voice. Don't let it take me. And then, in one blinding surge, Clara's figure shone brighter, illuminating the darkness that clung heavy like fog. The shadows recoiled for just a moment. Yes, Jake shouted, feeling the warmth of their memories surge through him, igniting the light inside. The forest quaked, roots and vines slashing upward like vipers, relentless in their pursuit of destruction. We can do it. Lisa's voice rang out, crystal clear, tinged with fierce determination. But then a horrifying chill swept through Jake, like icy fingers gripping his spine. The dark voice returned, deep and unyielding. You will lose everything, your love, your bonds. It felt like a venomous whisper, sliding into the cracks of their light. The energy faltered for the briefest instant, shadows shifting as a low rumble echoed through the ground, a warning tremor of what was to come. Don't believe it. Fight, Clara urged, desperation lacing each syllable. No, Jake cried, his resolve hardening. We're not afraid of you. She is ours. The darkness hissed in fury, the noise rising to a chaotic roar. But their collective strength pulsated like a heartbeat, refusing to yield. And then, in that instant, something shifted. As the void writhed in rage, Clara's silhouette seemed to flicker, like an old film stuck in a projector. Jake's breath hitched. Was she even there? Was any of this real? He had to know. I trust you, Clara, he yelled, his voice rising above the cacophony. Together we face this. He felt the connection feeding into him, casting rays of light across the dark expanse. Desperation momentarily transformed into pure determination. But then, a sharp pain erupted in his chest as a root struck him like a dagger. Searing heat spread, dulling his focus. Jake! Clara screamed, her voice laced with terror. The world around him dimmed as the shadows surged back, hungry and relentless. No! Mike shouted, battling against the encroaching darkness. Get back! But before Jake could respond, everything blurred. The weight drew him down. Clara's glow became a distant spark against the blackness. As agony gripped him, Jake wondered, was this the end? The light flickering out into nothingness? Together, we can make it. Then all went black. And in that void, hope flickered just out of reach. What would it take to pierce the suffocating darkness? Would the bonds they formed hold? Or would they be consumed entirely? Jake drifted through a haze. The darkness pressed against him, squeezing tighter, constricting his breath. Shadows whispered around him, echoing an endless chorus of despair. Where was the light? Was Clara still fighting? Panic surged like a wave, and he struggled to surface. Suddenly, a flicker pierced the void, a faint glimmer that drew him back. He could see Clara's face, framed in an ethereal glow, shimmering like a wisp in the night. Her eyes were wide with fear, but there was something else beneath it, urgency, a call to action. Jake, fight back, she urged, her voice a distant echo but resolute. Jake reached out, fingers grasping for the light, but a cold tendril snaked around his wrist, steel-tight and unyielding. The shadows hissed, their voices rising in a cacophony, taunting and threatening. You're too late. She belongs to us now. No, Jake screamed, the word bursting from his throat in a raw cry of defiance. He could feel the connection to his friends, that invisible thread tethering him to them. Memories surged forward, moments of joy, laughter, and hope. They lit a fire within him, fueling a flicker of resistance against the darkness. Clara, hold on. The shadows recoiled momentarily, allowing a brief breath of light to cleanse the heavy air. But it was never enough. The pull of the void was suffocating. As he fought against it, he felt a sudden jolt as something sharp tugged at his mind. A memory as vivid as the snap of a camera. The day at the lake, the promise they made. They would protect each other. They would always fight for one another. Come on, Jake. Focus. Mike's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Jake could sense Mike struggling, the same tendrils wrapping around him too. But the sound of his friend's determination sparked something deep within. Together, he roared, and the darkness shrank back, momentarily halted by their collective will. But a deeper darkness lurked. It pulsed from the heart of the void, an insidious presence that threatened to drown him again. You think your pathetic bonds can save you? They will betray you. This forest offers no sanctuary. Your fears will consume you. Jake's heart raced. Shut up, he yelled, tightening the grip on Clara's spark. He felt her warmth flowing back to him like a lifeline. But then, the chill returned, roots lashing at him with renewed ferocity. They twisted around his legs, tugging him deeper, dragging him towards the shadows. "Jake! Fight! Focus!" Clara shouted as he closed his eyes for a brief moment, feeling the heat of his friend's presence. Breathing deeply, he reached within himself and gathered every ounce of hope. The darkness swelled, but Jake held on to Clara, to Mike, to Lisa. He could feel their energy, coursing like adrenaline through his veins. Memories collided in a vibrant flash. Huddling together in the warmth of a campfire, the taste of s'mores, and the sounds of their laughter all washed away by this wretched night and that torrent. A thought ignited. What if it wasn't just about fighting back? What if he had to be the beacon? He opened his eyes, raw determination igniting his gaze. "We are light. You can't take that from us." Space around him warped, shadows thrashing in response to his declaration. The darkness roared, baring its teeth, but it hesitated, uncertainty creeping into its heart. "You're insignificant." Suddenly, Jake felt a sharp twist in his chest. A cycle of pain intensified, pulling him away from their unity. Time slowed as he was dragged back, Clara's glow fading. "Jake!" The desperation in her voice cut him like glass. He gasped, panic flooding him as the shadows wrapped tighter. "No, we won tea break." But beneath the chaos, a creeping doubt slithered into his mind. What if their bonds weren't enough? What would happen when they faced their fears? And then, like a cruel reminder, the shadows pressed in, closer, their whispers growing louder. "You know the truth. None of you can escape your past." In that moment of dread, questions echoed in his thoughts. What truths lay hidden in their past? Would they find salvation in strength or be swallowed whole by their darkest fears? The answer lingered just out of reach as the cold darkness closed in again, sealing fate with a sinister chuckle. Jake's breath quickened as the shadows closed in, their whispers clawing at the edges of his mind. "You know what you've done," they hissed, the echoes spiraling into a chorus of anguish. He squeezed his eyes shut, shoving against the weight that threatened to crush him. "Jake, focus." Clara's voice sliced through the haze, a sharp reminder of the promise they'd made. But the memory was quickly drowned by pain. The tendrils tightened, binding his legs, pulling him deeper into the void. He was hanging by a thread, teetering between light and oblivion. "What truth?" he shouted, voice trembling. The darkness seemed to relish his desperation. "I don't know what you want. We want what you hide," the shadows replied, their voices melding into a single, insidious whisper. "The fault lines in your soul reveal the darkness. Let it consume you." He opened his eyes, the flicker of Clara's light barely holding the shadows at bay. Mike and Lisa flanked him, shadows cloaking them too. They'd been through a lot together. "This forest couldn't steal that. We have each other," Jake screamed, desperation swelling. "Unity won't protect you from your past." The darkness roared, and with one powerful jolt, he felt the chilling truth of those words. The memories began to flood back, dredged up from the depths of his mind like a tide crashing against a rocky shore. Faces blurred, moments too painful to bear twisted into sharp reminders of mistakes made. The guilt burrowed deep, festered like an open wound. "Stop it," Jake howled, clawing against the darkness. "You're lying." But the shadows surged, swirling in response. Jake could feel Clara's light dimming, lost in the tumult. "You're a coward," they continued, their presence snaking into the cracks of his resistance. He felt it, fears bubbling to the surface, memories that haunted him like a plague. The car crash, the scream that shattered the night, his mistake overshadowed by guilt and grief. It was a memory too painful to face. "Face your demon, Jake." Clara's voice was fierce now, grounding him. "You can't run." "Do it," Mike echoed, and in that moment of shared conviction, the shadows faltered. "Why should we help you?" A voice thundered from the dark, slithering around his consciousness. "Your guilt has already doomed you." "Doomed?" The word echoed, igniting a fresh wave of panic. A visceral fear took hold. If he gave in, if he allowed that monster to drag him down, he wouldn't just be lost, he'd take them with him. "No." he shouted through gritted teeth. We're stronger than you say. With every ounce of willpower, he fought against the binds that choked him. The connection to Clara, Mike, and Lisa pulsed in his heart like a drumbeat. Their love, their friendship, it had to be enough. The darkness roared, wailing as he pushed against the doubt clawing at his throat. In that moment he perceived a flicker, a chance. He could see the light growing within each of them, pushing back against the suffocating shadows. Then, without warning, a sudden howl erupted from the void, raw and piercing. The shadows writhed and recoiled, causing a wave of fear to crash over him. You think this bond can save you? They echoed frantically. Your past will consume you. It always does. No, Jake yelled. We won't let it. With a ferocity neither expected, he unleashed all their shared memories, hopes, and laughter into the dark. The light burst forth like a flare in the night, illuminating the forest. For a heartbeat, the shadows faltered, swaying back as the warmth of his friends rippled through the void. But the darkness was never truly gone. It merely retreated to regroup. Tendrils lashed out, lunging at him with newfound fury. They clawed at the edges of his consciousness. You think your feeble attempts mean anything? We'll be back. Throbbing pain echoed in his chest as he gasped. The shadows pulsed with a maddening rage as he struggled to hold his ground. And with that, Jake realized the battle had just begun. What would it cost him to confront the darkest corners of his heart? And could they survive long enough to unearth the truth buried deep within? As the crushing weight of doubt pressed in again, he steeled himself. They might be cornered, but they wouldn't go quietly. Not yet. A silence stretched, thick with tension, as another echo pierced the void. You've made a choice, but will it be your last? The silence shattered like glass, splintering into a cacophony. Shadows twisted and contorted around them, alive with a wrathful energy. A terrifying roar echoed, sending shivers down Jake's spine. They were not alone, and something darker stirred, something that fed off their fear. Hold fast, Mike shouted, his voice fierce against the encroaching dark. The three of them squeezed their hands tighter, forging a fragile barrier against the onslaught. Memories surged within him. The warmth of summer days, the sound of Clara's laughter, sibling rivalry in playful heat. They had each other. They had to remember that. With another roar, the shadows lunged, but Jake felt the bond strengthening within their grip. Clara, he screamed again, fury lit in his chest. Fight for us. In that moment, Clara's spirit flickered like a firefly battling against the deepening dusk. Jake, I'm here. You must believe, she called, her voice rising above the din. It was a lifeline, a beacon in the dark, and he latched onto it fiercely. The shadows hissed and recoiled, momentarily stunned by the unexpected wave of defiance. In that precious second, Clara's face broke through the murky veil, illuminated by a fierce, otherworldly light. You have to believe in each other, she urged, her eyes sharp with determination. We can do this, Lisa chimed in. All of us together. Fueled by their collective will, Jake felt the ground beneath them shift. Desperation gave way to strength, igniting a spark within like a match struck in a dark room. Our love is our shield, Jake bellowed, the words erupting from deep within. Stay together. A blinding light burst forth from their clasped hands, flooding outwards. The shadows recoiled, shrieking, their dark forms twisting in discomfort. The figure's monstrous shapes started to unravel. No, how can this be? Hissed a voice from the shadows, full of rage and disbelief. Because we're stronger than you, Jake shouted, his voice a steely resolve. With newfound power, they forged ahead, the light penetrating the thick mist like a knife slicing through fog. Everything within the forest shuddered, as if the trees themselves quaked at the brightness of their courage. They felt Clara's essence tethering them, giving them strength. She danced at the edge of the darkness, her spirit radiant against the threats that loomed. Jake, she called, her voice silver and true. Push back. With everything. As if a switch had been flipped, Jake directed every fragment of his being into the light, feeling it form a protective dome around them. The shadows began to writhe in discomfort, roiling as if anticipating a storm. For every ounce of fear they held, he poured out 1,000 volts of unity and love. Together, they roared, every heartbeat synchronizing, creating a pulse that aligned with the very heartbeat of the forest. With one final, blinding push, the darkness exploded outwardly, revealing a glimmer of the night sky above, stars shimmering like diamonds against the obsidian expanse. The oppressive weight that had clung to them began to lift, each breath filling their lungs with hope and a fierce resolve. The grotesque shadows vanished into wisps, clawing at the remnants of their presence, the shadows melting into mere echoes. A bittersweet silence replaced the chaos, suffused with the tremor of victory, yet still tinged with fear. "Is it over?" Lisa whispered, peering into the space where the dark had held them, a mixture of awe and relief swirling within her chest. "We did it," Jake panted, still gripping Clara's essence that felt palpable now, almost tangible, a thread woven deeply into the fabric of their shared bond. "Not just me, us," Clara said, a brilliant smile lighting her face. "As long as we remember the love that connects us, we'll always overcome darkness." With gentle steps, they made their way out of the clearing, the night sky wrapping them in its cool embrace, as if welcoming them back from a vast abyss. The shadows had shrunk back, but Jake knew they would always be a threat, something they had to vigilantly keep at bay from that point on. The forest was alive but transformed, no longer a source of dread but a sanctuary. Their adventure became a tale that would bind them forever. They would return to this place, not fearing the folklore that haunted the campfire stories, but embracing it as they walked away. They reinforced their promise. They would always look out for one another, through darkness and light, and with Clara's laugh echoing into the brightened night, they knew they had conquered something much greater than fear. They had unearthed the raw power of love and family, lighting up their paths ahead. This is how their story ended, bathed in hope, woven tightly by the bonds that could never be severed. To everyone reading this, let this be a reminder of what matters most. Don't forget to cherish the connections you have. And if you want more stories that grip your heart and keep you on your toes, you need to subscribe now. If you liked this story, smash that like button to feed the algorithm, show some love to the channel. Flood the comments section with your reactions and your own theories about what might happen next. And please, don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the light.